What is the image in
All right.
Google Drive? Which one
Yeah,
is
so in what we were talking about just now is if you go to the Google Drive, the IoT security class resources, right? So that's not this workshop one. I actually probably should copy it over there. But underneath the IoT security class, which I gave everybody access to earlier, and I think you already have access to it from previous. But under applications and images, this image right here, this image from November 16th, because the rest of them are just software. This image here I downloaded, and then without unzipping it, I browsed to that file and ran it, and it unzipped it and is writing the file now. So what I will do, I wonder, will it let me copy? I mean, you know what? I downloaded a copy of it. We'll make a copy. And then I don't think it lets me, will let me? Let me see. I can open, it won't open. There we go, maybe there. And then 2022 level up. So I'm going to drop it there. Yeah, move it. So we'll come back over here. And rename to get rid of copy of. All right, so that's the image file. So the image file is in our Level Up Your Cybersecurity or in the IoT Security class resources under Application and Images. So either that's the same file. It's from fall of 2019. So it's a tad bit dated, but it did. I downloaded it. I did not unzip it. I browsed to that folder or to that file, the zipped file. And when I hit write, it went through an unzipping process. It took several minutes. And then it came up that says, hey, we're going to wipe out everything on the drive. And as soon as I did that, it started writing the CD or the SD card. So that, I don't know. Sounds like there's something wrong with the current set of images they have up there. I'm not sure what that's all about. And I may have a more current version that's functional, like something in the last year or so. I would just need to search through, 4.3 terabytes of data. Because most of it gets downloaded and then moved over to a hard drive for storage later. I probably could find one, but this one is working. So, right. So for those that are just getting back, we have a working, it looks like a working image, right? Or a download that worked. And that download is located. If you go to the drive and go to the Level Up Your Security Skills folder, the image, this zip file here, or if you are already in the IoT Security class resources, Applications and Images also has a copy there. So two different places to get that. So it says the device is provisioned and added to the list of devices. So if I click OK, it should go over to available devices, and there should be a WASTC 2020 W3, which is what I named it. So this file, this computer right here. So that file, you have to download it from my Google Drive, either IoT Security class resources, Applications, and Image. It'll be there, or it's in the root of Level Up Your Cybersecurity Skills. Should be the 1.05 gig file. It's named exactly the same as the other one, but it's 0.3 gigs smaller. So I'm not sure what they did on that. I think maybe they updated the operating system. I wonder if that's causing some of those problems that we had with that MQTT failing on us. Not sure. this point. Awesome. So that's kind of the leftover from before lunch. It was getting this image written to an SD card. How we did that was we downloaded a 2-year-old copy. So, actually almost 3, 2.5 years old. And we ran that image and it looks to be working. The way I'm going to check that is I'm going to, let's grab. All right, so here's a Raspberry Pi 3. Set these out of the way and take this SD card out. This is the SD card reader that came out of my computer. I'll take that SD card and plug it into the bottom of the Raspberry. See this properly. I've got it connected to an Ethernet cable connected to my switch. So if I'm looking at my graphic here, right, this is the Pi, it's connected to a switch. My computer is also connected to a switch through a USB Ethernet adapter to keep this network separate from my other networks. I am going to lean forward and make sure that that is a true statement, because I think it's not a true statement now that I look at my computer. Where did that log in? All right. I need to move this wire. So I'm going to take my headset off, crawl under my desk to move this wire real quick. Hold on. All right. Okay, so now my network matches this. Just for documentation purposes, right, so this network over here is 172.17.69.x. This network over here doesn't have anything, right? So it should be a 2. Why am I drawing like 169.25? 169.254, right? A little slow on the uptake today. Yeah. All right, so I'm using a PIPA on the right-hand side, and I'm using my regular network on the other side. And so there's the Raspberry Pi. This Raspberry Pi has a unique name. Right, and because we're using the PL-App, the PL-App is going to discover it. Right, so this is the name here. To power this, I just need to get a proper power connector. It's a C connector. Here we go. I'm going to move this out of, oh, it's not in the picture anyway. I'm going to move this off to the side so I can plug it in. So there's my Raspberry. Right here, you're booting, you can see the green indicator light kind of flashing right past the red light there. It shows that the operating system is booting properly, or booting. And we'll see if properly is the right word in a minute. Now, the way the PL-App works is if I just go over here to available devices, and my software here should see this once it connects and gets an IP address or makes up an IP address, right? My computer should see this, okay? And it may take some time because it is on a PIPA network with a lot of IP addresses, but it should pick up this computer. And when it does, we'll see this will change to be an online with a connect button. Hopefully we get there soon. That first boot usually takes a little while. And we're doing this without a monitor, right? So I'm not looking at a screen to see the process, make sure that it's booting properly or anything like that. This is typically how your students, if you're using the PL app, this is how your students will go through it, right? And you'll have that same kind of issue that we just had where we had to troubleshoot like the image and stuff like that. I'm not sure why that image, that primary image, we need to figure that out because that primary image is, it's important that that actually works. Right? We've still got a lot of disk read write action or disk activity going on. Just hoping that this will click soon. One thing I could try to do. I was going to return it. Oh, didn't find it. Oh, I tapped it in wrong. I should put my headphones on so I can hear people. Right, so we maybe didn't get as far as I had hoped we had gotten. So my other option too, though, is to put it on the radio. I want to try. One of the things I want to try is maybe dropping it onto my regular network to see if there's an issue there. We've got activity lights on the network side. We've got connectivity and activity. So this one should have picked up. The other thing is that over here, actually, let's try one other thing. Since I have two, see, it's not even finding the host. Yeah, that's the right name. I do it without the .local. Yeah, so my computer's not seeing it on. What if that's a PIPA thing? Thinking it is. So I want to try something. I'm gonna try one other thing. Somebody have something to say? As I troubleshoot what's going on here. I'll be back.
Once the SD card is formatted, so we kind of boot from the PL app from the Raspberry Pi, is it correct?
All right, so you can see in the background. So there is something going on when it was connected to. No, it did. It saw my machine. Finally, saw my machine as I disconnected it from the PIPA network. I should plug it back in. Let me go do that because it looks like it's now going to see it. It's just a timing thing. I was a little too impatient. Hold on a second. Well, it worked exactly as it was supposed to. I just didn't wait long enough. Okay, so I currently have it connected like this, right? So my Pi connected to a switch, my switch connected to a USB to Ethernet adapter connected to my PC. And then I'm communicating with you this direction off of my regular Ethernet connection that's in the back of my computer. And my computer on this side has a 169.254 number. I think it was 9 dot something or other. I'm curious as to why that didn't work. Right, because it's not seeing any of that, which is weird. Oh, I wonder though, let's go here, do it instead.
Hi,
So-
do we have to switch to set up the connections? I mean,
No, if you're at home and you want to put on your regular network, that's fine. If you're at school, this separate network would be advisable because there are some things that we do that may look like, nefarious deeds.
so in this case, my host computer will wirelessly get to my Wi-Fi access point, which is the switch, and I type my Pi to the switch port.
To the wire. Did you do it here, the wireless?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then
no, I did not. I did not do the wireless. I just
Okay.
use an Ethernet cable. Is it okay?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No worries. So I'm just me kind of checking to make sure things are working the way they're supposed to work. So I'm hoping that, right, that a student, and we'll use this with the next setup for sure. But I should have been able to see the computer this way. Well, you know what? I wonder if the image that they have doesn't run this. That ability.
Can we console into the Pi with the PL-App and observe the output directly?
Yeah. So here's what we're going to show you instead. So PL-App is different, right? So the way the PL-App works, right? The PL-App sits on your computer here, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect to the Pi through a browser. Okay, because it's a Jupyter notebook. And the way you do that using the launcher is you go to available devices. Oh, now my device disappeared off. It went offline. That's awesome. It was there 2 seconds ago. Wonder what happened. I wonder, that doesn't make any sense anymore. Because it was there and then it went away. Oh, I changed the cables again. I'm trying to, do I have something weird going on? Hold on. We had something strange that doesn't seem to be quite right. I got 2 cables. I'm verifying that my connections are connected the right way. That one's there. That's weird. Okay, so what's supposed to happen? It was on a minute ago, which then I started talking about other things and I completely ignored what was going on over here. This is the computer I just set up. It was online a second ago. I don't understand why it decided to not be online anymore. But what should happen is you set up your device, that you set your SD card, you use the image that we just downloaded, you set the name, the password, and you write the config. It provisions the device. And then when you plug it into the network, it should boot. It takes a while to boot. It should boot and it should come up and come online and have a connect button right here. I wonder, what was a 9? think it was 9.53, 9.53. So
Yeah,
I just
now I got offline.
yeah, so that doesn't, man. So one of my big gripes has always been the way this functions. If it works the way it's supposed to work, right? You should download the image, you should write the image, you should boot the Raspberry Pi, it should come online, you should click connect, right? And it used to do that all the time, right? And then we started getting errors on the right. It wouldn't write the config file. We had to do a little jig to get that to work. And now, right, this is a brand new image. I just put it on. I did have it, available to me. And then now it's not there. And I'm not 100% sure why it didn't. Like it went away. Like it was there a minute ago. So, and I know I double checked my layer 1. Layer 1 is as I expect it to be. So I'm going to wait and I'm going to give this a couple more minutes to see if it during the boots and comes back up to where it should be. But it should be, it should be as simple as that. Like you should get a connect button, and when you connect, you should get a web browser that pops up, right? And it should give you, you should be in a box that says password, and you type in whatever password you set here, and then you'll be into a Jupyter Notebook, which is a web page IDE, like a web browser-based IDE that they've used for this, which can be installed on a regular Raspberry Pi, which is kind of the way I'm heading, because these kind of silly issues, right? We keep having these kind of weird issues to get this resolved. I shouldn't have any firewall issues. I have my PC connected to the switch, connected to the Raspberry, all on a separate network, which was working like it was. It showed it like 2 seconds ago. What was weird is when it showed when I started disconnecting from the other network. And then normally I should be able to ping, I should be able to ping the name. So on a regular Raspberry Pi setup, if you ping the name of the Raspberry, it'll actually respond with its IP address. However, like this is a modified version. So why this one's not showing up is weird. And then why it doesn't show up with the ping local is weird. A little disappointed right this second that it's acting silly like this, because this is not normally how difficult. It's not this difficult usually. It's a pain, but it's not this difficult. It never just doesn't come up, right? And then, like I said, the only other thing that I could do is just drop it onto the regular network and boot it from there, which is what I had tried to do a minute ago. And when I did that, I was getting, I got that weird, like it wanted to go to the 254 or the 169254 number, right? So I think I've given it enough time. There should be no reason why it shouldn't be showing at this point. Like it should literally be showing. I've got activity on. Don't have any. I have my light. I have activity on the light there. I've got activity here. And then if let's do this. Let's see what this does. If I disconnect the cable. So I disconnected the cable from the PC. So the PC connection to the. And then I'm going to jump back down and plug. I'm basically plugging the switch into my regular network is what I'm doing. Right? So from the graphic here, I'm disconnecting this and connecting it over here to this network. That's what I'm going to do now to see if there's something weird. There shouldn't be anything weird, but I can't. I don't see what else is going on. So give me a second. Troubleshooting layer 1 on a workshop. That's And now see, it says checking, and it gives me the 169.254 number. Okay. So if I'm going to write that number down, 169.254.933. So it acts like it got that IP address. It says checking. It won't, I can't connect to that because I'm no longer on that network. So there's something weird going on. Because this indicates here, if this has this number here, that indicates that it found this computer at this IP address. However, I'm no longer connected to that network. All I did was unplug my USB and plug it into this, plug the wire into the switch. And then this came up, which should not have come up. Now, now I got to connect. Okay, I have a connect, and now look at the IP address. So the connect from before was from my local network. Okay, so here's what's happening right now. So this right here, I've taken that piece out of the mix, right? And there's a switch over here. And now I've done this, okay? So my network, and I'm on a home network, so this is not a problem. My thinking now that we're running into this is if you're going to do this where you have the Ethernet adapter, you should have a DHCP server over here somewhere, or you should statically IP while you can, because the Raspberry is going to pull a DHCP address. So that's a concern again, because then we can't do this unless we already have a DHCP over here, so that we get IP addresses that the Raspberry can. There was something weird about the 169.254. There's something weird. Okay, so when I click connect, everybody okay with what I've done at this point? I'm now connected directly to my regular home network, which I'm not going to have any problems with somebody telling me I can't do something on my network. The reason why I want you to maybe think about having it separated is or make sure that you're in a lab environment that's like sandbox away from any kind of intrusion detection or intrusion prevention, because those will lock you down if you get into that situation. So I don't have that here in my house for this exact reason, because I do stupid stuff like this all the time. So when you get the connect button, you're going to click connect. Okay. Maybe it'll launch, maybe it won't. That's awesome. Love that this is just going so wrong. Where's my browser? Oh, it launched in a browser, my bad. It launched the browser over here. Okay. So when I click connect, right, it launched the browser and it connected to Jupyter and it asked for your password. The password is whatever you typed in on this page. Okay. For those of you that are asking for the username, right? If you have to provide a username, then you're not connecting to the PL-App. You're not connecting to the Jupyter notebooks. If you log into the local machine, like if you boot this on a local machine, you'll end up with like this little chestnut guy with big eyeballs that says "I love Cisco," and then it has a login. If you're trying to log in there, none of this will work, right? Because that's just you don't actually log in locally to that machine ever. Okay. From here, though, I would type in the password that I set. Right? So when I set mine as Raspberry, and it will bring up the PL-App interface for us. Right? So you have to agree. And this is essentially the PL-App. You can see I'm on my computer. There's some information about the uptime and the CPU use and all that kind of fun stuff. And then if I go into course materials and IoT security, there are some like a little bit of lab stuff in here, right, that they'll have us utilize and access at some point in the future. Okay, this one, IoT security, doesn't have a lot of the Jupyter Notebook labs. And what I mean by that is like this notebook here. So they built this. This is an interactive notebook, right? So this notebook, it gives you the instructions. You can insert pictures. This is all done in markup, markdown. I don't know, markup language, I thought. If I get the term wrong, I apologize. But you can put all your instructions and, you know, and pictures and whatever. And then eventually you get to these where you can insert code cell blocks, right? And then right here, we've got the code cell blocks. And if I wanted to run this code cell block, I would hit the play button and it would run this block of code and give me my results right underneath. And then I can read the next set of instructions. And if I have to make changes, which I do, right? Because you've got to add the pin values to this particular, and then you hit play and you can run the code, right? So I like it from the standpoint that the instructions and the code are integrated together, right? And I don't have to provide the students with any code. I can leave blank code boxes and say, okay, here's what you need to do here. Or I can give them a little bit of code and they can get the rest of the code. Or in this case, right, they've left out some kind of key factors to make this work. And they told you here. So if the students are just jumping down and hitting play, it's not going to work. They've got to read the instructions, that kind of thing. So it's a really neat way of doing things. The reason why we need the PL-App on this computer, maybe not to access it this way a lot, but it's because all of the libraries and the software and everything else that we want to run on this are already built into that image, right? So they did they put everything together and then they created an image from that. And that's the image that we've downloaded, okay? So if you've successfully gotten to this point here, right, then you have, I'm going to shut this one down. You've successfully installed PL-App, right? So the PL-App, that would have been your thumb drive. This will be the image that you pulled off of my Google Drive, whatever you named it, whatever your password. If you put it on the Wi-Fi, you put your SSID and your password here, you write the disk image, it comes up, it goes through the process, it unzips, it tells you that it's going to wipe out that drive. You say, okay, wipes out the drive and writes your information. If it gives you an error, right, mine came back with it provisioned it properly, right? So it provisioned it properly, that's great. If it doesn't provision it properly, which maybe that's a newer image problem because this is an older image. You would click OK, and then you would update the config only, and that would provision it. Once you get the words that's been provisioned, it shows up on the available devices. I have a bunch here. You only have this one, right? Unless you've done this a bunch of times, okay? But you only have this one that you have to mess with. And then you click the connect button. Once you booted it, you connect the connect button, and you're connected. Right? This is how we interact with this one. We don't ever like log in. We don't plug it into a monitor and log into it, right? At no point do we do that. I think I don't know if it's using root or if it's using pi. I think it's using pi as the username. But you shouldn't have to ever insert the username the way they built it. I just saw your note, Karen. Yeah, and the Cisco Labs, it's always the firewall that causes the problems, right? I mean, I have the regular, Windows firewall working, but it's a PL-App is allowed through, and all of the different things. I mean, the things I use all the time are allowed through, so we shouldn't. Rarely would run into problems there. All right, so that's one piece of the whole puzzle today. This is just one piece. Is getting access to this. The PL-App, okay? So we have the PL-App here, available devices. I've got my device connected to my network, okay? So I'm comfortable that that's working, and we're gonna set that aside and we'll use that later. All right, so I could actually, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna minimize. I'm not gonna get rid of it, but I'm gonna minimize it. The next piece of this puzzle is let's stick with the Cisco stuff to begin with. Let's stick there. So if we go to the lab, no, that's not the lab we just completed. Oh, I went to connecting things to grab something, didn't I? Here we go. Try to figure out why I have connecting things stuff. Here's the level up. This is our class. And I'm going to go to, well, here's where we were. 1, 2, 3, 1. That's setting up the PL-App. That's the first part that we did. That's the part we just finished. 1, 2, 3, 1. Got it. All right. Next lab, 1, 2. I've been so long, it logged me out. The next lab that we want to look at is the 1, 2, 3, 2 lab. So this is in your Cisco NetAcad in our course that we created yesterday, and we got access to this morning. This is the lab to set up the topology. So this is going to be the lab that we're going to do to set up the the Virtualbox stuff. Okay. So we've downloaded Oracle Virtualbox, we've downloaded Kali Linux OVA and the Metasploitable OVA. Okay. For this lab, I'm going to split the screen so we can see what's going on. All right. To set up the lab environment, right? So once we've got those pieces, and we got those pieces, and I put them, just a reminder, I put those in my documents folder, and I put those in a IoT security images folder. Here's the Kali OVA, the Metasploitable OVA, and Virtualbox. Okay, we need to install Virtualbox. So I'm just going to double click on Virtualbox. And I'm going to move this folder out of the way. All right. So Oracle Virtualbox is a, go ahead and leave all that there, hypervisor. That will allow us to run VMs. You have to have a machine capable of running virtual machines, and you have to have the BIOS settings turned on for virtual machines on your device. So if you're running on an older computer that doesn't have that capability, or a device where you don't control what the virtual settings on the BIOS are, then you may have issues. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start that. So we did the installation and we started it. Trying to see, it gave me my, there's my icon right there. Oh, I already have them set up. So we'll do it again. So following the instructions of the lab, right, navigate to the Oracle page, download, install, right, download these two pieces. We've done that. Disconnect the PC from the school network and directly connect the PC to the Raspberry with the Ethernet patch cable, right? That's in order to avoid issues if you're in the classroom. If you're at home, don't worry about that. Okay. Import the virtual machine. So open Virtualbox from the file menu, file, import appliance, file, import appliance. We're going to go search for that. Which one do they want us to do first? Kali. So we're going to do Kali first. So documents. Oh, I see the IT security images right there. There's my, that's from 12/4/21. This is one from today. All right. So I chose the OVA that I downloaded earlier. Click next. And the new window appears presented. Check the reinitialize the MAC address on all network cards. I don't think that exists. Oh, it's down here. Generate a new MAC address for all. I think that's what they mean by reinitialize. I think this changed. Include all network adapter MAC addresses, generate new MAC addresses. Let's do that. Leave all the other settings alone. Let me click import. So that was step 1B. 1C, after the import is complete, Virtualbox will show the new Kali VM in its inventory. Yes, it will, eventually, once we get past 0%. 20 minutes. Oh my gosh. Insane.
So, Kerry,
Yes, sir.
when you are in the part one, step 2, that says connect to the topology, topology, it says that you need to, I mean, I can have the computer on the Raspberry Pi connected to the same switch, right? No, because they're saying disconnect the PC from the school network and directly connect the PC to the Pi.
Yeah, it's as long as it's on the same network, right? As long as it's the same
It's
subnet,
okay, yeah.
you can see it. And we already know we can see it because we had PL-App working.
Okay.
So as long as that functions, we're okay. The reason they want to do this is because they literally, one of the very first things they have you do in Kali is to do an fping.
Okay.
Right? And that'll throw up all kinds of whistles, right?
Yeah.
That's if you can't find it, right? But we already know the address, right? Because PL-App tells us the address. So if I go to my PL-App, like there's my IP address. I don't have to search for the IP address.
Yeah.
That would be if you need to find the address.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? The IP address, no, you are absolutely right. We have got to have this on a separate network. And the reason for that is this command right there. The command actually starts a DHCP server on that network.
Okay.
So we're going to have to put it back the way I originally planned. And once we turn on DHCP on that network, then the Raspberry Pi will get an IP address. Okay. Does that make sense?
Okay. Let me see.
So yeah, let me do that. That's as I kind of piece these things back together. It's ridiculous. I apologize. All right, so here's what's going on. Here's how I have it right now. In order to see, right, so let's say this is my PL-App Raspberry, okay? In order to see that Raspberry, I had to connect it to my regular network so I would get a regular IP address so I could connect. There was something going on when the address was in a PIPA address. There was just something weird. And I don't know what that was. I don't know why. Kind of strange. What I have to do in order for our topology to work properly, right? Because the Kali Linux box is going to be a DHCP server. So I had said I needed that DHCP server, right? We need to have a DHCP server. Well, the Kali Linux running, there's a VM over here running. It's going to provide the DHCP services for this network over here. Okay, so I need to replug this in. I know it works. I know that the PL-App works. I need to plug it back in. And when I turn on the DHCP, I will get a new IP address over here, and I'll be able to communicate back and forth. So I'm okay doing that at this point while I'm waiting for this Kali Linux. Holy cow, 59 minutes. This is not going to be good.
So for that, we need to shut down the Raspberry Pi.
I don't think you do. No, not at all. Because right, it will get rid of its IP address and go back to a PIP address at some point. Maybe restart it after we've turned on DHCP. That would be my take on that. And we'll restart them after we get done with getting the DHCP up and running.
Are we going to use, do we need to have the other Raspberry Pis today connected to the additional switch that you have in there or not?
You talking about this one here?
Yeah.
We're going to put the Raspberry Pi OS on this one.
Okay.
And as long as we're running the VM with the DHCP, then this will be just fine. Not a problem.
Okay.
But for the Cisco PL-App components to work with the virtual machines, we need to have it this way. It needs to be on a separate network. The VM, right, needs to have this IP, this network address or network adapter as its primary network adapter. So, and I may have to go change that on my, I can't move this to see. Oh, I can. See, it's on an Intel. I need to change it. So when I get done, I'm gonna have to change it over to my USB adapter. So there's a couple of weird things that I missed. We'll get them all resolved and everybody will have a good plan.
So I'm gonna grab another switch.
Okay. And I'm gonna, again, move my cable back where it belongs to properly do this. I don't need access to the PL-App for anything I'm doing right this second. But as soon as I get this VM up and running and get Kali up and running, I want to be able to communicate with my PL-App. And that's the only way I'll be able to do it going forward. So I'm gonna, yeah, wow, that's insane. What have I got going on in the background that's causing, I don't have anything going on other than all these browser pages and Zoom. And we're just gonna let that keep on trucking. This Kali Linux is gonna keep on trucking. I am going to, I'm gonna put this back yet again, like the 4th time. I'm gonna put this back. I do believe that once we turn on DHCP on the VM with it attached to this IP address, I don't wanna do it when I'm attached to this one. When I'm attached to this network adapter, this USB network adapter, then everything over here will get proper IP addresses. So, and we'll be in good shape. Until then, right, we're gonna wait, right? Hopefully not that long, but maybe. All right. I'm reading John's comments in the chat. So network advanced promiscuous mode allow all. So we need to do that. And then, and is that, I don't know that that's here. And the other thing I want to look at, we have over here in the security class resources, we have a IT security course issues. I don't remember there being, to log in the Kali, you need the universal login, credentials, user root, password tour. After starting Kali, you must follow the following commands. So this is just the DHCP to get everything to work properly. So that's not. All right, so those things all have things that we talked about already. Reporting of this lab crashing when the VMs are started, could this be a resource issue? Topology setup does not describe the network required to support this lab all as well. Yeah, I agree with that one. Okay, I'm just trying to see if there's any other weirdness, things that we're not aware of at this point. I think we're okay with that. I don't need to download Virtualbox anymore, and I don't need access to large files. I think I put both of those in the comments, so we're okay there. I'm trying to see if there's anything else running that I can not run right now. I don't think I need to run. I'm going to turn off my PL-App. I don't need it running currently. I'm going to move that cable again to get me back to the topology that we're supposed to have for this lab, for this, this topology here. Because once we run that DHCP script, then everything over here will get IP addresses properly. And then I'm gonna leave this guy running in the background, and we're gonna move on to something different. But let me get that cable moved, and we'll go from there. Actually, I'm not gonna move that cable yet. Once this is done, and I need to connect it to the network adapter, I'll change the cable, because we may be able to get the other Raspberry Pi functioning before this gets done. We should be able to. All right, So we're going to set aside the VirtualBox. Oh, it won't let me move it. Okay, I'm just going to go over top of it. To do the one last, we have a couple other pieces, right? So we have the Pi imager. So part of what I wanted to get ready today also was to have I think my computer's just going to go in super slow-mo for the rest of the day. I'm waiting for the ACL to come up, or UAC, sorry. All right, so here is Pi imager. Wow, yeah. This install may crush us. So we'll see. So the very first thing we want to do with Pi imager. So we have, we need to grab another SD card. Let's say you're supposed to have a couple of them. I want to be able to switch them back and forth as need be. Or if you have two Pis, then you just basically would have one in one Pi and one in the other, which would be the best scenario. I'm going to grab that one. Okay. All right, so I've got another SD card. Put it back in the reader, put that into the, oh, it's the first for everything. Completely missed the slot. All right, there we go. Okay. Plug that into the computer. And then with the Raspberry Pi imager, we're going to choose an operating system. We're going to ignore all the Windows warnings. The operating system we're going to choose is going to be under the Raspberry Pi OS Other. And it's going to be the Pi OS Legacy. Okay, this Pi OS Legacy here. So while I have this running, I'm going to try to go ahead and see if I can write this SD card. I'm going to write the legacy operating system. We talked about that earlier. The reason for that is because most instructions that you're going to find online currently work well with the legacy software. There are library changes to some of the Python modules, and definitely the kernel of Linux and things change with the newest version. And there are some issues. So we'll go with incompatibilities, just some strangeness that happens. In fact, when we were doing labs a couple of weeks ago, we had 2 online initial state labs that I do all the time in class completely fail using the new OS. And when I switched back to the legacy OS, they worked perfectly fine. Okay, so based on what you're seeing so far, I want anything that's going to get us to perfectly fine as quickly as possible. So, so Raspberry Pi OS Legacy. Okay, once you choose an operating system, you'll see a little gear icon shows up now, and we're going to click on that gear icon. And when it gets around to it, it will show us some advanced settings that we can do. So for this session only, we want to set our host name. You can set it to whatever you want to. So for me, I'm just going to do RASP-1. No, something easy. So we'll go with bananas. So, right, I'm just going to name my computer bananas because that's kind of feel what's going on right this second. It's all bananas. Okay. .local. So this way I can ping bananas.local, B-A-N-A-N-A-S, right? So we know that because of no doubt, right? It's the only reason we know how to spell that word. .local. All right. I'm going to enable SSH so that I can terminal to my Raspberry Pi the very first time that I turn it on. Okay. And then I'm going to set my username and password, right? So password or username is Pi. That's the default username. okay? And following proper cybersecurity, right? We should change that to something different, right? So I'm going to change it to just my name for now. Okay. And I got to come up with a password that, well, let's without. Usually it shows that password. So we'll use no doubt on my computer today. This computer will, once we're done with the workshop, it's going to be re-imaged anyway, so I'm not worried about that. So I'm using SSH, and I've set a non-default user and a non-default password. Okay. If you want to configure wireless, you would do that here. Configure wireless, and then show your, type your password in. And I'm not going to use wireless. I'm going to use an Ethernet cable for my particular computer. If you do use wireless, make sure you choose your LAN country as the USA, because there are some radio settings that get changed because of it. And then I would highly encourage you to choose your locale, right? So mine is America, Denver, and I'm going to choose a US keyboard. Okay, so these advanced settings allow us to turn on SSH, rename the host, set a username and password, and then set our locale settings. Okay. At that point, I'm going to hit save. I'm going to choose a storage device. The storage device is going to be my SD card that I have that I plugged in, and then I'm going to click write. It will automatically erase everything. So yes, I want to continue. And so now what it's doing is it's going to download the image and write it to the SD card all in one fell swoop. Okay. And we're going to let that roll. And then we may end up taking a break. I got 14 minutes. I'm only halfway done on this other side here. I've got 3% on the Raspberry Pi OS already. All right, so yeah, so make sure that you read the comments that John has put in there about Virtualbox and Pis. We may need to play a little bit with MAC addresses and IP addresses to avoid issues. My problem right this second is I told it to use my regular network card and not my USB adapter. So that's gonna be my first thing I need to change, and then we'll go from there. So getting everything configured, right? And I know we probably could have said, hey, do this ahead of time. Though I do this on the first day of almost every single workshop I have. So if you've had me before, you've gone through this process with me. And every time we have something weird happen. So, and I do that because something weird happens every time. And so I don't want somebody at home on Sunday, especially yesterday being Father's Day, like trying to get this figured out when it's better if we're all here doing it together. So we spend this first day kind of getting everything set, right? And once everything's set, then the rest of the week is like, okay, let's do this lab. Let's try this. Let's try that. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, let's try it this way. Okay, that works. Okay, then we just kind of work through the week that way. But this process kind of painful. I want to make sure that you see me doing it. It's recorded. So if you want to come back and watch whatever I was doing, as I click through things, I try to talk through things. I know I tend to go, I should probably slow myself down with, each click and things, but I am trying to explain what I am doing as I go through. So I know over here, I probably should have had the USB to Ethernet plugged into a network so it would recognize as a network adapter. And then I would have chosen that adapter before I hit start or import. And then, right, based on John's investigation there and working through this, we're going to have to probably make a couple other silly changes as well to get everything working the way we want it to work. Okay, and if that's the case, then what we'll do is we'll transfer those notes into that IoT issues document that is found in the Cisco. We have this, what I mean by that, we have the Cisco IoT, right, this issues document. So on the lab installing Kali, we would put more additional information about putting into promiscuous mode, make sure you have your second adapter connected before you start, make sure you select it, deselect the primary adapter, all those kind of fun things. Okay. I think when they wrote the lab and they said disconnect it from your network and plug it into your Raspberry, they are assuming that you don't have a second IP or a network adapter, right? They're assuming that you don't have that USB adapter and that you only have the single adapter. And in the classroom, that's probably the smart thing to do. Unplug it from the wall, plug it into the Raspberry. If you're allowed to. I don't know, sometimes the way the wires are transferred through desk can be really difficult. All right, so it looks like my Raspberry Pi OS on the right-hand side is finalizing. So we got another Microsoft warning. Oh, hey, I don't like your drive. I need to format it. I just ignore all of those drives. Cool. All right, so there's additional information there. We need to put all that information into that document. In fact, let's do that right this second. So, setting up the topology. Can I copy out of the chat? All right, so I'm going to do updates. What's today? Updates 620. And then I'll copy the second one. So for today, right, you got everything in the chat box there, but if for some reason you're working on this separately, right, and you do this maybe tonight or tomorrow or some other time, the notes that John put into the chat are now in this Cisco IoT Security Courses Issues document that can be found on the Google Drive. All right, and I just saved that file. So over here on the right, it looks like my card is finished. I'm loading up a picture on the left-hand side here to see. I need to add this screenshot to that document. Get that done real fast so that's finished. All right, so that's done. So awesome. Okay, so I've updated the Lab 1.2. So we look here, this is the document I'm talking about, Cisco IoT course issues. I've added this part here with the document, with the picture. Okay, so that should help with any future installations. Over here on the imager, I'm going to hit continue, and at the same time I hit continue, my Kali Linux is finished on the left-hand side. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to leave the imager there. I'm going to pull the SD card out. I'm going to plug the SD card into the Raspberry Pi that I have connected directly to my regular network currently. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to plug it into my switch so that it's following the example that we have here. Okay, and then I'm going to power this on. So just to get a visual, so you have a visual of what that looks like, right? So here's my Raspberry Pi. Right? I've got it connected to an Ethernet cable. SD card is here, power with USB-C. Okay. This is a really neat piece that you may want to consider buying at some point in the future, but it's a little adapter, USB-C adapter that has an on-off switch. So you don't have to constantly pull this out. You can just simply hit the button to turn it off. I'm going to set that off to the side. And at this point, I didn't do this yet, right? Because we're waiting for Kali Linux to be done. And I'm still connected over here. Okay. What we will do though is, so Kali Linux 1, that one's done. I am going to go ahead and remove my older versions of these. Right. And then we need to create the Metasploitable. And so if I go back and look at the lab here, we just did Kali. Repeat the import process with Metasploitable. Okay, so that import process is going to simply be, the Metasploitable is really small. So import appliance. Yeah, I mean to set this twice then. So IoT security images, Metasploitable. I'm going to click next. That's interesting that these are now, those adapters show up. It's not plugged in that way. No. All right, I'm going to import, it says down here, generate MAC addresses for all the adapters, import. This one goes pretty quick. So we've done the Raspberry Pi image. Right now I've plugged it in and I've booted the Raspberry Pi. Kind of watching the lights to see if we got a good image or not. If you get a red light and a green solid light and the light doesn't flicker at all, that means you're not getting any read writes on the SD card. And we've had issues with that the last couple of days. Not sure what that is about. Could be the quality of the cards. It could be something else going on. So this has a little bit of time left. Now, what we could do in this, while we're waiting for this one, is if we bring up a terminal, and an instructor in the last class that we did a couple weeks ago had mentioned, right, I have Windows 10 and I was using command line, but if you download the terminal app from the store, like, it's so much better. So if you don't have the terminal app, like from the store, you should do that. It's a lot. It is so much nicer. So I got green lights and then it turned off. So I think I might be okay. Of course, I say that and then I get this. That's awesome. I started it up twice though, I think. No prompt. My machine is hating me right now. Literally, what are you doing? Close this. I don't know. I don't have anything else I can close that I don't use right this second. We've got import 100% over here. I don't know what this is all about. I'm having some weird issues today. Yeah, because I get a prompt here. No, oh, there it goes. Now I get a prompt. I'm gonna go back over here. So the Raspberry Pi is connected to my network. I should be able to ping bananas, right? It'll give me an IP version 6, I think. Oh, great, lovely. B-A-N-A-N-A-S, I spelled it right. Why is this not working today? Normally this works. Unless I'm trying to do a live lab, and then it doesn't work, right? All of that should function. There's no reason for it not to function. So disappointing. We'll close that and wait. We got Metasploit here. Kali Linux is there. Now on Kali Linux, we needed to go into network settings, right? And I wanted to use my ASICs, this USB 3.0 gigabit. That's the one I wanted to use. Risk mode, allow all. And I need to connect the cable. Okay, so this is where I need to tell it that that cable exists. And then Metasploitable, I wanted to use the same network. So on that one, we want ASIC and it's fine. So these are the two settings I'm going to change right this second. I'm going to go unplug my, I'm going to plug my computers in the way the network is expecting them to be plugged in, which is like this. The last time I'm going to do it. Before the break. Okay. It is plugged in. All right, so I'm now, my network is now this setting here. So I've got my network separated. I've told these machines to use that network adapter, right? The A6 adapter that I have. Invalid setting detected. Okay, doesn't like my video adapter. We'll just leave it as is and see what happens. Okay, okay, I've got my PL app is up and running now. So, and my computer is offline now again because it's on the network that doesn't have IP addresses, right? But both Kali and Metasploitable are set up in Virtualbox and they're turned off. And I have a Raspberry Pi that is connected, but I wasn't able to ping to it for some reason, using the name of the computer. So we'll go through, let's go through the lab here. So to continue this topology lab, right? So we set up the Virtualbox for Kali, we set up the Virtualbox for Metasploitable. In this step, we'll ensure the network is configured between the Raspberry and the VM. So this is where we're going to make sure that that lab side of our network is going to run. Turn to the VM player window, highlight the Kali Linux, and click the green start button. So Kali Linux start. After a brief delay, you will see a new window that's opened. What all those failures were earlier. All right, so the username is root. The password is TOOR. Root spelled backwards. And we have Kali Linux up and running in a virtual machine. All right. See the desktop, click the terminal. And then we need to run that command right there. I don't know if Control-C, Control-V works. It doesn't. Edit paste does though. So Control-C off of the instructions, edit paste with the menu. And this should hopefully start up a DHCP on my my lab side of the network, right? If I chose the right adapter and all that kind of fun stuff, I won't have conflicts. All right. So once that's running, if I do ifconfig, right, we can see that I've got a 203 network now. Okay. So that's what we were hoping for, is a 203.0 network. But also what I'm hoping for is on my PL-App, I'm going to restart the PL-App, right, to see if it will pick up a new IP address from the DHCP server that's running. So I've just unplugged it. I'll count to 20, right? Do a little dance. Yeah, it's not good when KC and the Sunshine Band jumps in your head. So I restarted this, right? So I'm I should just stop. Where's my PL-App? PL-App is hiding. PL-App is here. So I exited my PL-App. I went back into my PL-App. I'm not.
Yeah,
Yes.
I got to use the selections on the lower left. Let's use the broadcast MDNS, and then you see them.
Is this right here you did?
Yeah.
Okay. It could also be that, I mean, it's a boot thing. Maybe it just takes, and again, I'm just so impatient. I just want these things to work right away. Which I know a lot of our students are that way too. They want instant. But there should be no, it should have picked up. Like, I'm wondering, like, it might got some weird issue on this switch. That's not, like, that it's not, activity is not happening. Oh, that's interesting. It was acting like that network cable wasn't plugged in. I'm going to be upset. This whole time, it was a layer 1 issue. I'm still not seeing this though. So what I should be able to get is, this should pop up as viewable, as seeable, as available on this network. I will unplug the network cable from that computer and replug it back in so that it tries to make an attempt. The other thing I want to see then, so while that's kind of going, let's look at, I keep dropping my terminal, don't I? Okay, so I've got this separated on a different network now. All right, so I am getting an IP address on my, Raspberry Pi, right? My Raspberry Pi OS. Okay, so that's my IP address for the Bananas network. I'm curious if I can do the same for the WASTC -2020-W3. and if it comes back as that host doesn't exist, or if it does and has an IP address. Okay, so odd. Now, this here is showing me that I can reach my PL-App, but this one here is showing it as offline. Okay. What I'm going to do now is, because I now know this address, if I go to a browser and I type in that address, I'm logged into my Raspberry Pi, right? So I'm logged into my PL-App. Okay, so something is goofy here with us having the two networks, the two network adapters. There's something weird with the PL-App, and I'm not sure if, I know it's worked in the past. I'm not sure if there's something else going on. So that needs to go down as an issue to try to troubleshoot. All right. So I'll get that on my little list of things. Cool. Okay. So this is what I expected to see. Ping bananas, and I see an IP address, right? So because my Kali Linux box, there's my Kali Linux box, is running as a DHCP server, and it's handing out 203.0.113 addresses, right? And I've got 203.0.113.19 and 203.0.113.20. Okay. For the PL-App, I know that I can get to it via a browser, via the IP address. So I really don't need this to function. It would be super nice if it did what it was supposed to do and show me that that device exists, but it's not. So I'm not going to worry about that because we do have a workaround. You can ping it by the address, or you can get to it from the address in a browser if you know the address. And I got the address by simply pinging my name, the name of the device. Okay, whatever you name the device. The second thing is now that I know my IP address for my Raspberry Pi, my bananas, right? My bananas Raspberry, I can, from the terminal, SSH username, which is in my case Carrie, at the IP address 203.0.113.19. And I type the word yes to fingerprint this. This is fingerprinting the hash for this particular connection. And then I type in my password. Right? And I am now connected SSH. I'm connected SSH to my Raspberry Pi OS. The Raspberry Pi OS on my second Raspberry. Right? So right now I'm connected to this Raspberry Pi with SSH. Okay. So I'm using SSH to connect currently. This one here, I'm using the browser and a software called Jupyter Notebooks. That's a Jupyter Notebook. So that's how I'm connecting currently. What I want to do on here is I want to be able to connect with VNC so I can see the graphical user interface on the Raspberry Pi on my screen. Okay. So we're remotely connected to both of these units, neither unit, right? So if I look at these units, right, no video adapter, that's the PL-App. And if I come back this way, this is the Raspberry Pi OS, no video adapters, right? But I'm connected to them and communicating with them across the network, okay? Now, the last piece of this puzzle, as far as connectivity and is to turn on the Vnc Viewer or Vnc for this Raspberry Pi OS. So from the command prompts to do that, I'm going to do sudo super user do. We're going to run the configuration utility called raspi-config. Right, so this is going to bring you to the text-based graphical user interface for the Raspberry Pi. Okay, and what I want to do is go to interfaces, interface options. I'm going to hit enter. Using the arrows on this, and I'm going to go down to VNC and hit enter. And I'm going to arrow to the yes, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to click the enter button for OK. And then I'm going to tab twice to get to finish. The only thing I want to set right this second is VNC. Just want to turn on VNC. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter, and that finishes it out. So I basically turned on the VNC server, the VNC server on the Raspberry Pi. Okay. So I'm going to leave that running. This is the SSH terminal to the Raspberry Pi. This is the PL-App connection to the Cisco PL-App Raspberry Pi. And this is my Kali Linux box running a DHCP server. And there's the IP address for this particular box as well. Okay. Now, the last thing I need in order to connect to this Raspberry Pi with VNC is I need Vnc Viewer. So from a browser, we're just going to type in Vnc Viewer. And we're going to go to the download Vnc Viewer page. There's no cost to this. And you're presented here with all your options. What I need to warn you about is this is going to choose what operating system you're currently on. Like if I'm on a Windows machine, so it wants to install the Windows version. However, your students will typically interpret this as, well, I want to connect to a Raspberry Pi, so I'm going to click on the Raspberry Pi version and do that. That's not how it works, right? You have to click on the Windows version, right? Or the Mac version, or the Linux version, or the iOS version. Or, I mean, there's one on Android too, so they could, from their phones, right, use a VNC viewer to connect to their Raspberry Pis. I'm on a Windows machine, so I'm going to use Windows. Okay. I'm going to download the VNC Viewer. One thing I did notice is they give us a SHA-256 hash here. So I'm going to do one other thing. It's called the Checksum utility. So the CNET one here. So I'll copy this into the chat. So when time permits, I like to show the students this, but this is a little utility that you can get off of CNET. I've used it a lot. It's really simple. I'm just going to click on download. It's called the MD5 and SHA Checksum utility. And the reason why I like to show them this is it shows them kind of how hashes work, right? So we know that we're getting the right file. And the easiest demo that I've ever seen is somebody, on the desktop here, I'm going to right mouse click, I'm going to click new, I'm going to click text document, right? And we're going to do SHA test, SHA-test.txt. So we're going to name it SHA.txt.txt. Okay. It's a little it's a blank document. If I open it, right, here's the document, it's blank, right? Hello from a mile high. Okay, exclamation point, right? Pretty excited about that. Not really, just as an example, right? So I wrote a little sentence, and I'm saving that sentence, okay? If I reopen the file, you can see hello from mile high, exclamation point. Great. Now, to check this, right, if I were to browse to that file, this file here, and have it do a checksum, right, it will give me the different hashes. These are just different mathematical equations that create a hash that should be unique to this file. And if something changes in this file, the different hash that's generated by that changed file should be dramatically different, enough for a human to see, usually right away, right? They usually can see it right away. However, we have a program that will check it for us. So what I want to do then is I'm going to browse to my desktop, and I'm going to grab that file. right? And I've generated an MD5, a SHA-1, a SHA-256, and a SHA-512, right? These are all just, again, they're different math problems that generate these hashes, right? These answers to the mathematical problem that are unique to this file. Okay, I'm going to grab, right, this SHA-1 one just as an example. Actually, we just copy SHA-1, right? And I'm going to paste the SHA-1. So here is the, right? You can look, if you look, they're the same. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up this, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not all that excited about, right, being a mile high because it's hard to breathe. So I'm going to just change that to a period. We good with that? I changed the exclamation point to a period. That's all I did. I'm going to reopen it so you can see, right? Exclamation point to a period. I'm going to browse to that file again. And I'm going to open that file again. And you can see, you should have seen right there, all of the hashes changed. And if I look at this hash and this hash, I can see that they're different because they start, 50 and A8. But if I click verify, it will also tell me, hey, the hashes don't match. Okay. So what this is telling me is this is not the original file that I had, right? Something has changed in this file. We know what changed. But if you're getting a file offline or from online, right? And you don't know what the original file was, and you don't know if something has changed, right? However, right, if they are kind enough to provide you with the hash, right? So here's a SHA-256 hash. I can copy that hash. Let's clear all of this. Let's just close it and start it over. MD5. Right, so I can paste the hash of the known file, right? This is the hash of the file that I expected to get. And I can browse to my downloads and I can select the file that I got, right? And what? That's different. Did I do that wrong? Oh, I don't think I did. So it should be the same. So now that scares me. We did this, right? I should have got the same exact hash number here. This hash number here should have been exactly the same as the file that I downloaded, right? And the file that I downloaded, which is in downloads, right? Show in folder. It's in the downloads folder. That's it right there. It actually has a different hash. So that kind of now scares me, right? Yes, because they should be the same. They shouldn't be different. So let's double check that. So did I copy? Oh, wait, did I copy the wrong hash earlier? 788. No, I didn't. I got the right hash there. I pasted that hash and I browse to the downloads. This is the most, yeah, that's the file. And the hash is different. I wonder if it's because I ran it. Oh, wait, I'm looking at the wrong file. Nobody's telling me. I'm not looking at the right file. I want to look at the Vnc Viewer file. Okay, now I'm a lot more comfortable with what's going on. Sorry. So if I hit verify, it will tell me that they match, right? You can see these two match. It's really obvious. 788B, 788B, right? B5, F5, B5, F5. Sorry. I was trying to checksum the checksum utility when I was really trying to verify my Vnc Viewer. So what this is telling me is that the file that I downloaded is actually the file that I expect that they have, that they actually gave me. There's nothing that changed. Nothing got lost in transmission. Nothing got added to it in transmission. Nothing is different in this file, right? Nothing is different in this file. Because these verify and they match. So then I'm comfortable that I can then run Vnc Viewer, right? And install that viewer on my computer because it's the file that I expected to get, right? And I already have it installed, but I just wanted to go through the process with you. Does that make sense? So maybe, I don't know if that is of value to you, that little diverge, talking about hashing. But I think it's a good way to make sure that your students know to check these things, especially when they're, if they have checksums presented to them as part of their downloads. Like, here's the download and here's the checksum for it. It's easy to verify. It took me a couple seconds to verify that, and I'm 100% comfortable that that's the file that I expected to have. So I think it's a good exercise to kind of show. So now that I have Vnc Viewer downloaded, I can run Vnc Viewer. And on Vnc Viewer, I can type in the address of the Raspberry Pi that I'm trying to connect to, which is 203.0.113.20. No, it's not. It's 19. This is the one I'm SSH to. Okay. So 203.0.113.19. And username and password. I'm going to have it remember the password for this particular machine. Oops. Seriously. Okay, interesting. So now it says it can't currently show the desktop. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go back over to my SSH, right? So there's sometimes there's a video resolution issue. I'm going to go to my SSH. That's why I left SSH open. Why I'm still connected. I can go back to the Raspberry config. I can go to display options. I can set the resolution. Yeah, that's not crappy resolution. Let's see. Let's do that one so I can at least see it on the screen. Okay, so I set it to DMT mode 85, hit enter, tab to finish, hit enter, reboot, yes. And then over here, you can see that it's attempting to reconnect because it did restart the machine. And then when it comes back up, hopefully I'll get a graphical user interface. It also closed my SSH over here. All right. So I'm hoping this comes back up. And then if it does the way I expect it to come back up, it should come back up and show the screen. I got my Kali Linux running. I got my PowerShell or my SSH running. I'll have a VNC running, and I will have my PL-App running. And then we're going to take a break. Baby, come back. Those were songs when I was little. Those don't even count. Actually, the only reason that came to mind is I think we listened to that album yesterday. Patience, carry patience. Over here on SSH, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, see if we get a connection. I'm hoping that it should not have gotten a different IP address. It's just taking a while to reboot. It's a slow reboot process. Connection timed out on the right-hand side. Kind of feel like there's gremlins running around my network. Because this is not a 5-minute process to reboot a SD card. especially because I don't need video for SSH to work, right? So we just changed the video adapter setting, but SSH isn't even back up and running. I've got read and write on my, I can see my SD card running, but I'm not getting any connections. I think I mentioned break and I didn't want that to happen. I jinxed it. So curious now, if I go ping bananas local, it even comes back with anything. All right, so on the left-hand side, it finally popped, so this is good. On the right-hand side, I did get the same IP address. So it's just me being impatient. SSH is gonna work. Right. Connected with SSH. So on the right-hand side, left-hand side, sorry, this is my graphical interface to the Raspberry Pi. Okay. Welcome to the Raspberry Pi desktop. Before we start using a couple things. So we're going to go through the setup process here, get next. We are United States, English, right? Set whatever is appropriate for you, right? Use English language, use US keyboard. So, which is interesting because that's not what I said. And, oh, I know why. Okay, that makes sense. We're using legacy. So over here on the left-hand side, we're using the legacy OS. So the April 4th update, the one that we were running off of, with the newer OSs, it actually blanks out the Pi user. It doesn't have a user. You have to create a user on the first boot. And on the older OSs, it still runs the Pi Raspberry configuration. Right, so Pi is the default user, Raspberry is the default password. So I didn't change my password. Change my password on this, and then there's no black border here, so I'm not worried about that. And I'm not gonna connect it to a Wi-Fi network, so I'm not worried about that. And then I am going to go ahead and tell it to do the updates, right? Because that gives us time to take a break, right? And at this point, wherever you're at in this process, it's okay, right? We still have another hour of today's lab, and my hope is if you are working on these things, we can get everybody to this point, right? With Kali Linux functioning in Oracle VirtualBox, with a Raspberry Pi operating system, Raspberry Pi OS with an SSH connection and a VNC connection, and then connected to a PL-App connected as well, right? And I'm using the browser for that. I'm curious now that I've been running it without. I wonder if it will show up. And see, it now shows up. I turned off the PL-App launcher and get all this stuff, and then I turned it back on, and then now I can connect from here. So if I click connect here, it does actually connect me. There's the one that it just connected to, and here's the second one, right, that I was already connected to, where I typed it in. So that works. If I close that down and I click connect, then it launches a browser and connects me to my PL-App. Okay. So nice, I got all those pieces working. If you, I'm thinking a 10-minute timer. If you have questions or issues that you want me to, for us to deal with when we get back from break, you can put them in the chat. You can hold on to them and ask in person, either way. But I think what we'll do is come back, and anybody who's attempting to do this and has run into an issue or having a problem, then we can address those problems there. My goal is to get all of these things done, for anybody who wants them done, to get them done today. The other piece, the only other thing that I was thinking about doing, is from the, well, I'll wait until break is over and I'll tell you then. That's what we'll do. We'll do that after break. So let's do 10 minutes. You guys okay with 10 minutes? 10-minute timer. Okay, I will be back.
Hi, Kerry.
Yes.
Quick question. Once you have the 2 VMs up and running and you have the second Raspberry Pi, what is the last part that you did with the second Raspberry Pi after you plug it in there?
Oh, this part here? You're talking about this Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, but after you plug it in, I mean, I see on that 113 network, I see like a couple of devices, which those are the 2 VMs, and I think I see the 4 computers. So,
all right.
But what is the part that you missed? I think I didn't see that last
So I think
part.
maybe that.
Let me see.
So I just ping the name .local to get the IP address specifically of that Pi.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I can connect to it via SSH.
Okay, but by default the SSH was already enabled.
If you, where's my imager?
Oh, I remember when we bought it.
We turned it on the advanced options.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah, that's all brand new. That's all within the last 2 months.
I never saw that.
It's so nice.
That wasn't there before.
It is so much better.
So now I should be able to do just SSH and just change.
Yes, sir. If you turned it on and put a username and password, you should be fine. Remember before we had to do like WPA supplicant and we had to put SSH file without an extension in the root directory before we booted the. It
was a pain,
and then they added it to the install. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so nice.
This is actually nice. Yeah, it is.
This imager is really, they did a really good job with that imager.
Yeah. I never saw that option.
It's brand new. Yeah, it just came out within, and that's what I was trying to find is the article. So Tom's Hardware has an article about it. Right. So then the disable overscan and that one's gone away. But then like you can change the name and SSH. So all these things you set beforehand. So I'll save this article over to I just put a couple of things over there while we were getting ready for this, but Raspberry Pi imager documentation, just kind of some getting started documentation on the Raspberry Pi. I put that in our resources page, right? These couple of documents here. And then the other thing I did was for those that are, me walking you through the lab is one thing, but having written documentation about the lab is even better. So I don't know if it's better, it's just different. It's definitely where you can do it on your own, but this is the lab. I put this in our, I just dropped it out of it. It's in our Google Drive. It's the 1.2.3.1 lab, setting up the PL-App. And this actually walks you through the PL-App launcher configuration, right? So everything I did, we did with you, I did it, just verbally, and I showed you. This actually is the written version of how to do that, okay? And there's some kind of strange things that maybe you may need to do, maybe not. So depending on where you're at, what's going on, but that's kind of how that works. And that documentation is in our shared folder as well. Okay, so I put that out there for you.
Okay.
I didn't want to leave you hanging. I'm like, well, if somebody didn't keep up and then I don't want you to give up. I want you to continue to work on it and try to figure it out. But I also want to give you documentation so you can kind of do things later on as well. All right. So there should not be depends on. Yes, there is a default password. It's Raspberry, all lowercase. Pi is the default username. the newer versions of the operating system, the Raspberry operating system, will not have the Pi user on by default, right? So the current version, which is the Bullseye version, it doesn't have the Pi user. The legacy version that we're using still has the Pi user and the default username of Raspberry, all lowercase. On the PL-App, there is not I think the user is Pi, but you have to set the password as part of the installation. So that'll be whatever you set in that in the PL-App, which would be set on the setup page here. You would set it right here, right in this spot.
When you do the connect, it just ask for the password.
I couldn't hear that.
When you do the connect from the PL-App, when you do the connect and it comes up, it just asks for the password to connect to it.
So when it asks for the password, mine doesn't because I logged in already. The password is whatever you set here.
Right, but it doesn't ask for a username.
No, because the username is the default username. I think it's Pi. I don't know. They don't ever need it. If you need the username, then something's wrong. Right? Are you trying to log in like as to a video? Like you've got a monitor plugged into it and it asks for a username? Should be Pi, P-I.
Could be, but it wasn't.
I'm not sure what else it would be. I've never had to use it. Maybe root.
I think I tried that too and it didn't work.
Okay.
I got in this way and went, oh yeah,
Where?
now I remember. Yeah.
Okay, is it asking you, like it's not asking you, I'm gonna log out here, right? So so now when I click connect, right, this is what it should be presented with. There's no point ever where it asks you for a username that I'm aware of. The only time is if you have a monitor connected and you're trying to log in at the commands prompt. But if you do that, then you can't actually, you're not running the PL-App, so you won't have access to the actual documentation that we're using. If that makes sense. And so through this direction, I can get here. I can't really show you the login, the Cisco. I wonder if somebody has a picture of it. I'm gonna bring this off screen just in case something stupid comes up. Terrible. Cisco IoT login screen. Cisco Raspberry Pi. It looks like a, I don't know if you've ever seen that. If you plug your PL-App into a monitor, right? I swear it looks like there's a big poop emoji on the screen. It's not a poop emoji. It's like a chestnut, like with big eyeballs that says "I love you" on it. I love Cisco or something like that. I'm like, first time I saw, I was like, what? What are they doing? Yeah, and I'll have you have people try to log into that, and like if you try to log in there, that's great. You can log in eventually, like if you have the right combination. I thought it was Pi and whatever your username was, but the problem with that is that that doesn't get you to this PL-App. This is this through a browser to your computer's IP address. So as long as you know the IP address, so maybe you log in, you use ifconfig to get the IP address, and then use a browser to connect. That would be one way to figure that out. If you know what you named it, right? I know I named mine WASTC-2020-W3. I can ping that and it should have returned. Like, and it didn't work earlier. I think there was that weird, because I didn't have DHCP running and the PIPA was acting funny on that side or whatever was going on over there. I'm not 100% sure what that was all about, but that's what I feel is going on. So that could be the case too. But yeah, if you're logging into the login screen, like if it's asking for a username, then we're in the wrong place for that to be functional as part of the labs. We need to be kind of here.
Quick question.
Yes.
I got stuck on the VM. How is that you can switch to another Windows on VirtualBox? I know it's
Like switch this to another window?
Yeah. I mean, I got stuck on the Virtualbox and I cannot just switch to any other window on my desktop without.
I think you have to
Oh.
press right control key.
Yeah.
It's control what?
The control key on the right. See over here, right control. So you click the mouse inside of the virtual machine display hotkey. So next, press the down icon. Right. Mine was captured. Right. And then if you click that, or right control key, the control key on the right hand side should undo it and give you your mouse back. No love.
Yeah, right control, but
Shows the current hotkey assignment. This key is when pressed alone, toggles the keyboard and mouse capture state. So right now I have no capture. So I'm not clicking in there, but if I click in there, it should capture it at some point. Actually, I have to re-enable it, don't I? Yeah, capture. Press the host key anytime to uncapture the keyboard and the mouse. And if you capture it and return them to the normal operation, the current assigned host key is shown, right? And it says over here, right control. So just a single key, just the control button that's on the right-hand side of your keyboard. Usually under the shift.
okay, yeah, finally.
Okay,
Thank you.
no worries.
I got
Awesome.
stuck.
It's like, let me go.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with the VMware workstation.
VMware, yeah.
Okay.
So the only other thing that we haven't tried this yet. So, right, so if you're continuing to work on it, go ahead and work on it. So then on the Mac, it's the left command key, right? So the left command, not the control. They don't have control buttons, do they? They have command. All right. And then, so here in VirtualBox, I wanted to do another machine. So I'm going to, let me find a browser window that I can use. Raspberry Pi VirtualBox. There should be a Pi My Left Up ad. So yeah, so we're going to try this. So running a virtual Raspberry Pi virtual desktop within VirtualBox. This was updated January 30, 2020. So we downloaded, if you remember, I downloaded that image earlier from Raspberry Pi, the Pi desktop image. It should be this one right here. If I right mouse click and extract the files, hopefully we don't have any weird Cisco PL-App issue with this one. So we're gonna let that go while we continue to look at the instructions here, right? So download the operating system, right? So go there, we've done that. Install VirtualBox, we've done that. Create a virtual machine. So within VirtualBox, you need to create a new virtual machine. So click the new button, okay? So let's put that there and let's put this here. So we're gonna click on new. And then we're going to call this Raspberry Pi Desktop. This part is not required. This part is for fun. Number 2, we're going to leave, right? I believe we're going to leave there. Number 3, we're going to change that to Linux. And number 4 version, they want us to do Debian 64-bit. Once you have all 4 options set correctly, click Next. Click Next. We'll allocate, our guide will be sticking with 2 gigs. I'm going to run out of RAM at some point here. 2 gigs is fine. Let's see what happens. And click Next. Create virtual disk now. Is that what I want? Next, confirm the virtual machine, virtual hard disk. So create virtual disk now. So we want to select virtual disk now. Okay, that's good. Click create. And it wants us to create a VDI, Virtualbox disk image. Click next. And now we choose whether we want the disk to be created all at once or whether it should be dynamically allocated. Dynamically allocated is better for us. Click next. Size of the virtual hard disk in megabytes. It didn't give us a thing here. Dynamically allocated. This sort should be more than enough for most case uses, but you can increase this up to 2 terabytes. I think we have enough to handle like maybe a 16 gig, right? So that's fine. Okay, we'll create that. And then starting up, so then, whoa. I didn't say nothing, and it just went there. Okay, awesome. So at this stage, you should be a virtual machine created within VirtualBox, right, that can run a virtual desktop within it. Within VirtualBox, we just created click. So we want to click on this, and we want to start here. See a prompt. So we need to, okay, so we need a prompt. We get that. We should get a prompt to go and tell it to use our ISO, which is not ready yet. Or is it? It is ready. It's right there. So this folder or that image, was that an image file already? Or was it a .exe? Sorry, I'm talking to myself now. So I thought that was a zip file. Maybe I was wrong. It was an ISO. I don't need to do any, I didn't need to unpack it. That was silly. We just wasted time. Okay. And then, so I can use the folder here to go find my, we're going to click add. We're going to go to where my ISO is located. Here's the ISO that this is the ISO that we downloaded earlier. And click open. And select it here. And I think I just click choose, right? Choose. All right, so that's the ISO. That's the ISO we downloaded earlier, Raspberry Buster i386. And click, I believe we click start. Yep, click start. All right, so then on this one, choose options. You'll most likely choose are run with persistence or go ahead. Oh, I didn't want to run with persistence. Somehow I clicked it. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to install. First option allow you to boot into the Raspberry Pi desktop immediately without installing the OS to the virtual disk. However, the OS will start persistence, meaning the packages you install. So there's my OS running on a virtual machine. So OS, the install option will traditionally install the OS to the hard disk. So I'll fix it later, but I think right now we're just going to run with persistence. We'll go ahead and do the changes that we need to make to the default operating system here, the setups. Use US keyboard, use English language. I'm going to leave the password as the default for now. Update software. We're going to skip that for now. So I've got my little awesome. So this is going through if you do an installation, right? So, or actually, yeah, we've already done all of this. Cool. So that was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. I'm running with persistence, so that's the problem. So then my next thing I want to figure out is, right? First of all, is everybody doing okay? Do we have I've got Dnc running. I now have an Oracle Kali Linux running. I've got VirtualBox Kali Linux running. I've got a VirtualBox Raspberry Pi running. I have an SSH connection to my Raspberry Pi that is also running in Dnc. And we have the PL-App, the browser-based connection to my Raspberry Pi. All right. So on the PL-App that's not working, is it not working because it's not showing up in the PL-App? Launcher doesn't see it. Do you remember, you should be able to see in your launcher what you named the computer, right? This name right here. So when you get to your launcher and you go to available devices, it doesn't show you anything. It says offline. It doesn't give you an IP address. Doesn't see it at all. Like this doesn't show up in the available devices. I'm going to ask the question one last time so I get an understanding. Do you see the name in available devices? Okay. On the setup page, when you did the installation, did you get an error at the end that said it wasn't provisioned? Or couldn't write to the config.txt file or something like that? Some error along those lines. You didn't get that error? You said it did say it was provisioned? Okay, so if it's not showing up here, then my suspicion is that it didn't finish the install properly. Okay, that's my suspicion. And the reason why I say that is because frequently when you get to the end of this, right, and it gets to 99.9%, it'll give you an error box that says could not write to the config.txt file, and all you do is click OK. Okay, and then it goes away, but you don't, like, if you just clicked OK because it was an OK box, then it would, and we missed the wording, then it didn't write the config file. It never wrote the name of the drive, name of the computer onto the config file. So what has to happen is we need to re-image. So you have to take the SD card, put it back in your computer, re-image the computer, and then when you get to the end and it gives you the text box, right? Let's make sure that we look at the text box, and if it says it couldn't write the config file, you'll click OK on the error, and then you're going to see this little update config only. You'll click there, and it should give you a box that says it's been provisioned. And once it says it's been provisioned, the last, I don't want to say error box, information box, right? The information box, when the information box says it's been provisioned, then you should be able to see it listed on this list over here. And once you've got it listed, then that should be fine. I think what happened, and this happens a lot, is that at the very end of the installation, it didn't write the config file properly. And then we clicked OK and moved on. We need to make sure that that config file writes, otherwise it won't show up. So that's what I'm thinking is going on. So so just at this point, I would just redo that image real fast. I mean, it should take, this 10-minute or so deal. We'll be good there. Cool. Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other?
Kerry.
Yes.
I set up my the VirtualBox with the Kali, and but but my Raspberry Pi is still at the address 169.254. So it won't change the address to 203.0 though.
Okay, and then, all right, and how is your network?
I kind of follow your diagram. So I bring
Okay.
up the
So
two port switches.
It's wired
Yeah,
like that, and you've got
yeah,
the
right,
USB
right.
here. Did
Right.
you, on the Kali Linux, right? On the network, so on my screen here, on the Virtualbox, Kali
Right.
Linux, on networking, did you change it to make sure that you were using your gigabit, your USB adapter and not your primary adapter?
Yeah, I set to point it to the USB Ethernet interface.
All right.
And then I was I tried to ping the 169.254 is no connections. Before I was using my Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And then I was able to ping the 169.254. But of course, it's the different network address, so that's the problem.
Right. The other thing I changed in here was on promiscuous mode. I clicked on advanced, the promiscuous mode, allow all.
Okay.
I don't know if that will make the difference. I think that was something John was looking at earlier.
All right. Okay, maybe I can try. Let you know.
Possibly, and that could be maybe a conflict with MAC addresses.
Yeah,
So-
I generate the new MAC address.
Okay. But I think
yeah.
this promiscuous mode all kind of helps that piece.
Okay. All right. Let me try. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Darlene, have fun. Talk to you later. So try that one and see if that works. We'll kind of work it from there. And you're comfortable that we've got this kind of wiring going on, not this wire here, but like we've got a USB to the switch and we got the two Pis connected here, right? Because this VM, oh, did you run the script on Kali?
Oh yeah, the first command, yeah.
The one that started the DHCP server?
I think so. There's a one command in the instructions, right?
Yeah, let me find it. And where's my Kali Linux box? It's hiding. It's back here. This right here, this dot lab support underscore files scripts start underscore DHCP script sh.
Yeah, I did run it.
Okay, and then you got this command okay starting, or this response. Oh, and Kali needs to be running the whole time. You can't like run that and then turn it off either. That's one thing too. I'm not saying you did, I'm just reminding everybody. So awesome. All right, so I think if we, maybe double check our wiring, make sure we're plugged all in the right place. Make sure that you're on your Kali Linux and your Metasploitable that you're using. And I don't have Metasploitable running right now. I don't really need it running right now. On your network adapter that you make sure that you are connected to the right adapter, the proper adapter. I don't know which adapter it is for your computer, but make sure it's the proper adapter and make sure that promiscuous mode is turned on for all. And I left mine as a bridged adapter. I think that hasn't caused me any problems yet. So awesome. How are we doing otherwise? Do we have multiple Raspberry Pis up and running? The idea of today was if we got to this point, then this makes tomorrow morning easy, right? Because we can just jump right into the labs and start doing stuff. So we get all the kind of issues resolved today and tonight, then we can hit the road running tomorrow. For those that are still here, I do want to point out, and you may want to take a look at this lab, maybe this evening, but this Showdown Lab, this 1.6 lab here is really, really interesting. It's a really interesting lab. Right, but you gotta you get connected to Showdown and then you investigate connected devices. So they kind of walk you through some things and you can start to see how you can like all the devices that are out there that are available. It's kind of a crazy crazy world. So that's a really good, it walks through a whole bunch of stuff and it has you kind of do some searching and try to look for devices that are available on the network, on the internet, right? And it's one of the things that's interesting about that search, if you think through it, like anytime there's a vulnerability in a particular device, right? All a hacker has to do is come to Showdown and look for that device and then see if it can exploit that, right? So if you have a device that's connected to the internet that has a vulnerability, that's a published vulnerability, there's a high likelihood that somebody will find it pretty quickly because of stuff like Showdown, right? Which is a pretty, I mean, it's interesting. I think, you know, so I'm not going to assign it as homework, but I think you may want to take a look at it. It's kind of it's a good lab to do. But it's not Raspberry Pi based. It's just cybersecurity stuff. So we'll leave that for outside of class. Can do. If I can type correctly, I'll do that. It's not a problem. Cool, cool, cool. If you have your machines functioning and you have, you know, the IP addressing, the 203 IP addressing is functioning the way you expect it to function, and you can ping things and you can see things, right? So I should be able to ping, oops. Should be able to ping 203.0.113.19, right? And I should be able to ping 20, right? So I'm comfortable that my network, my lab network is functioning the way it needs to function. The fact that they got the DHCP, I'm good with that. The fact that I can SSH, right? That makes it, you know, that's a good connection. This is my VNC connection to the computer. So I have both you know, the graphical user interface connection and the text-based connection. And this is to the same machine, right? So this is to the same Raspberry Pi, right? Right. And then if you, you know, if you're able to get a VNC, so I got the VNC here. This is actually not VNC, this is Oracle VirtualBox. This is a VirtualBox machine. And what I'm hoping to do, connect Raspberry Pi 0 to Raspberry Pi OS. Actually, what I want to do is I want to access Raspberry Pi 0 GPIO from Raspberry desktop. I'm trying to find, yeah, so this is kind of the idea what I want to do. I want to have a laptop where I'm connected and I can connect to the Raspberry Pi 0 and then be able to utilize the pins and everything. Oh, that's interesting too. I didn't realize that. So access GPIO pin 0 from your PC or double the available GPIO pins from a Pi 3. That's interesting. I didn't know you can. That's why I wanted to try this, because I know it was out there. I didn't know how we would do it though. Boot into stretch, Raspberry Pi desktop, everything you need. Plug in your 0. All right, so here's 0. I don't have a. Do I need an OS on it? I need to get an OS, but on one of these. I'll try that tonight, but my goal for this, like having this Virtualbox, is I'm hoping that it will recognize the Raspberry Pi 0 being plugged in, and being able to communicate with it. Because if I can communicate with it, then I can actually program a 0 from the desktop in a virtual machine. All right. So Alex, we got it working. Good. Most excellent.
Yeah, I got a question about the cable that you mentioned, the USB to the TTL cable. Which day we expect to have it?
Unfortunately, I'm going to do that in the morning. So we're going to record the lab, but I want to give you guys a cable if you want to try it later on in the week. Like if you want to get a cable for later on the week, we can do it. Or we can wait. I mean, we can skip doing the hardware piece until Thursday when people get cables in. That's fine too. Whatever. I'll give everybody a choice in the morning.
Oh, so the schedule was expected tomorrow morning, right?
Yeah, because it's a hardware.
Okay.
Like it's the hardware. It's like the root of all of this. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
One question. When I started the virtual machine after I burned the second Raspberry Pi, the first time you boot it, I got like a weird 192 address, but after I did the thing, I don't see it anymore. I mean, I see the regular subnet on the side. That was very strange. I don't see anything in the interfaces anymore except the proper one. I don't know if that was just the first time you boot it.
It could be. It's just part of the boot process.
Yeah, but now I don't find that. I mean,
but you can see the Raspberry and.
Oh yeah, I'm able to ping every virtual machine and everything on that one in the 203 subnet.
Okay.
But it was very strange.
Yeah. It was the regular Raspberry, right? Not a PL-App?
No, it's the regular Raspberry Pi. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a regular, yeah.
Did it grab
Raspberry Pi 3 or 3B plus?
Did it like try to assign itself an PIPA address and then find the DHCP maybe?
Yeah, probably the 192, the 168 or something maybe when it's booting. The first time you do, yeah. Well, it works.
Nice. Oh, look at this. So it looks like, so I could take my headset and I could attach it to my Raspberry Pi here. So I think I'll plug in I'll try that later, but I think it looks like I may be able to plug in my Raspberry Pi 0 to my computer and then push that USB to my Pi desktop, which would then give me access to the pins on a Raspberry Pi from a virtual machine on a computer, which I think would be totally cool. I love it. All right, so I don't know why. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe just a timing issue with getting an IP address, and like it went ahead and decided to start giving itself its own IP address, and then it realized, oh wait, there's a DHCP server, and it took an address. Or maybe the handshake back and forth wasn't complete yet. And then when it completed it, it reassigned itself an IP address. That would be my guess. So that's what was going on there.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Other questions? Hopefully you got most everybody, at least at this point, or at least if you're watching along, that's fine too. If we went too fast and you want to watch the videos later, the video, because I did not stop the recording at lunch, it's going to take, I would say probably at least an hour before it's rendered properly, an hour and a half maybe, and then I have to bring it up in Camtasia and cut it in half, and then take that piece and export it, and then once it's exported, I can then upload it. So I got to go through 3 processes before I get there. So there's a high likelihood that it'll be morning before those things are finished. but I will try to get the two I try to break them into morning sessions, afternoon session, and I'll try to get those posted on my YouTube channel. The link for that particular channel or that particular playlist is in the website documentation. It's up there in the top. But it does take me some time. So as soon as I'm done, it starts to render. As soon as I click end, right, the file starts to render. Since it's an all-day rendering, it'll probably take like 2 hours or so. So I'll probably, while I'm watching the ball game tonight, I will probably try to get that done because I can do both of those at the same time. All right. Other than that, I think we've got 9 minutes left. If you have questions, I'm here to answer the questions. My goals for today were to get us to this point, right? To get to Kali Linux working, to get to your PL-App working, and to get to a Raspberry Pi working on the network. We walked through them. I can walk through them again if you need me to walk through them again. The recordings will be posted, like I said, probably by morning. So if you wanted to walk through them on your own with video, that's great. I also have posted the instructions for both of those over on our Google Drive. And then I will try to go through the chat this evening, and I will try to move the any web links or important details. I'll move those over to documents that are shared on the Google Drive so that you have access to those. My goal this week is to kind of get you one step closer to being comfortable with the Raspberry Pi, right? And then to see some really cool and neat things that you can do with the Raspberry Pi as it relates to cybersecurity, right? And kind of dovetailing on what everybody asked for earlier, right? And, examples and labs that I can implement in the classroom. And we'll try to spread the love around the different types of things, pen testing types of things, defense, offense, auxiliary, or ancillary, what's the right word, but things that are related, but maybe not quite those two pieces. But I think, the first thing is getting comfortable with the installation. Hopefully everybody's done at least one Raspberry Pi installation. And hopefully if you've never used the Imager before, the Imager, you should have fell in love with the Imager because it's really good. It just does exactly what it's supposed to do. And you can do all those settings ahead of time. And it pulls out a good 30 minutes worth of rigmarole that we used to do to get a headless. Because that was a headless setup. We did a headless setup and we were done in 20 minutes, right? And imagine doing this remotely and teaching students that have their own Raspberry Pis at their house, to be able to do this without having to plug into a monitor, keyboard, or mouse, not having to double check and write config files and other things like that. It makes the whole process a whole lot simpler. So, but with that, you're welcome to drop off. If you have questions, I'll hang out for a couple more minutes and answer questions as well as I can. If you're still troubleshooting something, let me know. If something comes to mind overnight, email me. I'll review things in the morning and try to get answers to you first thing. Right? My week is this workshop, so kind of everything else is just on the back burner until we get to Friday at 1 o'clock. So, all right. Love it.
Okay, here's something.
Okay.
Did you know that Stephen Hawking's voice was powered by a Raspberry Pi 3 in the last months of his life?
Are you kidding me?
It used to be a call text 5010, but after 30 years, it was at the risk of failing.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. That's crazy cool.
Yeah.
This little device shows up everywhere. It's just what? You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. That's awesome. That's a cool piece of fact to know. I'm going to win the next Geeks Who Drink because of that question. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Trying to see if there's anything else. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Anyways, All right. Awesome.
So see you tomorrow.
Yeah, take it easy. I will,
Okay.
yeah, we'll be here. We'll do it again.
Oh yeah, no, I'm ready.
Now it's time to
New
get fun.
stuff.
Like we
New
got rid of
stuff
all
like
the,
always. Yeah, I like that.
right. Renee, thank you. Take it easy. We did, but we got all the, yeah, everything's set now, so we can start to play. And that'll be the fun part. That's the, but you got to get this part done. Like you got to get all the installs done and get through all of the little silly, why did that didn't work and this didn't work, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy.
Bye.
Enjoy.
Bye.
All right, what can we do now? I'm going to stop my share. I don't need to do that anymore. Thanks for hanging out with me. Have a nice evening. I'll leave that article up for later. That one for later. Trying to get my desktop organized so I can get stuff done this evening. We don't need the camera any longer. Turn that off. Take it easy. Bye, John. All right. Okay, if anybody's still here, looks like Sharon is still here. I'm going to end our session. Have a nice evening.